Hello and welcome to the Town of Litchfield Board of Selectmen meeting. Tonight is Monday, May 12th, 2025. If we could all rise, pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
My name is Steve Gannon. I am the vice chair sitting in for John Brunel, the chair, who is away this evening. With us tonight, we have Diane Plansky, member, Dr. Kim Queenan, member, of course, Mr. Bob Leary, member, and town administrator, Kimberly Kleiner. We're going to start off with award and recognition for Litchfield's 2025 Top Dog.
Who's the top dog?
You're not presenting this to Kevin, right? Kevin's not your top dog this year, is he?
Well,
Could be.
you did be.
I'm furry enough.
Right.
All right. Good evening, everyone. This year, the town clerk's office wanted to have a little fun to registering all the dogs in town. So we decided to put together a basket to raffle off to one dog that processed their, or one individual that had their dog registration process before April 30th, which is the deadline. We definitely had a lot more participation this year with people registering their dogs on time. I had asked the chief, Chief Jones, if he could pick a number. We had him choose between 2 and 1,650 dogs.
Oh my God.
The deputy clerk had one, so we weren't putting one in there. That's not allowed. So he chose 837, which was just a random number, which was this year's top dog, which is a golden doodle named Buffy. She's actually out in the lobby there waiting. We did some pictures, so she's ready. She'll have her picture on the website. She'll have her picture on our Facebook page. She'll receive the basket and a treat. She's waiting for that treat. And she will get the #1 tag for 2026. So myself and the two part-time clerks put this together. And it was a lot of fun. I think a lot of people enjoyed it. A lot of people came in and am I entered? And so we just printed off the list of everyone and it was good. So let me get Buffy so she can come in and get her props.
Enemy Buffy. I love it.
Are you ready?
Come pet that down.
Come on. Say hello.
Hi, Buffy. Oh, she's pretty.
I'm surprised, Dan, you're not over here.
I would like to pet the dog.
Surprised Diane doesn't know the dog.
Don't know all the people in town, but know most of the dogs. Hello, Buffy.
So here is her basket.
Oh, you get present.
And then here's your cookies. And here's Simon's hot dog. Come here. How's that? Oh, you want your cookie? You want one up?
We should have dogs at all our meetings.
No, I have to take them.
Yeah.
I know.
One
She'll never
cookie.
refuse that.
Just one?
One, she says.
Just one?
Great.
Oh, she likes you.
That's when you need Kevin or you'll break a nail.
Need a pen? You want a pen?
All right.
Here you go, Buffy.
You are beautiful.
Sit down. Can you sit down?
Good girl.
Good girl. All right.
Done with that one.
Thank you.
Nice to
Harry,
meet
that
you.
sounds good.
Congratulations.
Thank you, folks.
I love it.
Thank you, Terry. That was a great idea.
Good night.
Isn't that cute? We should have dogs at all the meetings.
All right. back to normal business. All right, we have a review and approval of consent items. You're looking at me like you have something to say. All right. We have an AP manifest for 5/6/2025 of $78,398.79. 5/13/2025 of $16,144.31. We have a payroll manifest of 5/8/25 for $67,979.99, and one for 5/15/2025 for $66,857.88. We have a purchase order, Caterpillar skid steer for $51,900. As a refresher, Mr. Brown came before us on April 28th. The $50,096 will be coming from the Public Work Trust Fund, and $1,804 from the Public Work budget for $51,900. We have a purchase order for Continental Paving, paving the recycling way, transfer station, highway garage area. This was approved December 23rd, 2024. The contract was awarded to Continental Paving for a total of $303,743. We have a purchase order for Mark Colomb and Sons for the cemetery maintenance. They have held their price from last year to this year. This is the second year of a 3-year contract for a total of $15,050. We have the April 2025 Town Clerk Reconciliation. We have the April 2025 Tax Collector Reconciliation. And we have, I think, one Veterans Tax Credit Recertification. Moving on, we have a presentation tonight for the 2022 Clean Water Grant Presentation, Stormwater Asset Management Inventory Maintenance Plan. And this is coming before us with the Town Administrator Kim Kleiner, Road Agent Kevin Brown, and New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services. Actually, should we make a motion to approve the consent items? Or this has to be consent approved as well, right?
No, this is after.
This is after.
All right, can I have a motion to approve the consent items as listed?
So made.
Thank you, Bob.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
401. I should say 400. John's not here.
Correct.
That didn't work so well, Steve.
It's not working, huh?
Is it the
Took
one that's
forever to
only?
load.
Did it?
Yep.
There
Got
it
it?
is.
There it is.
I think that's gotta be signed by you or John. One signature on that, Continental Paving.
Mr. Gannon, so we have, Mr. Lato here from, Comprehensive Environmental.
Hello.
He is our contractor for this project. So just a few brief notes. In November of 2022, I think I had just joined, and in November, New Hampshire DES held a workshop demystifying asset management at their annual Drinking Water and Groundwater Bureau and Wastewater Engineering Bureau Conference. I attended that. That was the first idea of this that had come to light. I then realized, and I want to give credit to former town administrator Troy Brown. He had also looked into this and actually placed a placeholder. So thank you to him. So what is asset management? It's a strategic approach to maintaining and sustaining infrastructure in order to meet the needs of the community at the lowest overall life cost. This approach helps to our communities to know how and where to prioritize limited funds in order to achieve the greatest benefit. This method is well suited to managing any assets, especially stormwater systems. So a little bit about the process we went through. In January of 2023, the town applied
Have a seat, ma'am.
to New Hampshire DES
You're not in timeout.
for the funding from the Clean Water State Revolving Fund loan to develop the stormwater collection system asset management program. The town's pre-application at that time was approved by New Hampshire DES. In February of 2023, we put out an RFQ for the engineering and consulting services to establish the collection asset management program. Comprehensive Environmental responded, and they were chosen. Just a note about CEI, they have worked with the town for several years. Nick Christophe actually came and did our MS4, some of our changes that needed to be made to our planning and our zoning requirements, which were done last summer. So they've worked with us for quite a number of years, and they were really the best choice for this program. So the town of Litchfield, New Hampshire at that time, and if Kevin found any more, this number's gonna change and Scott's gonna tell me, operates and maintains approximately 3,769 acres of MS4 permitted area with 91 active outfalls and 566 catch basins. The town has performed contracted inspections of portions of its system and found sections that are in need of repair and sections that are old and beyond their useful life. And I think you've seen some of that with some of the projects that came forth, like Pilgrim and those.
Pilgrim
So-
was fun.
Yeah. So, the first, part of the program was to identify the stakeholders and to establish a vision statement, which is the first step in the development of an asset management program. And defining the vision describes what the goals are for the development of the program. And when properly crafted, the community-specific vision statement will help communicate to stakeholders the purpose and overarching goals of what the asset management system will accomplish for the community. Stakeholders, most have common stakeholders, both internal and external. And so identifying the organization's stakeholders are those that are connected to the managing of the assets and understanding their needs, like the planning board, conservation commission, even the budget committee, because they need to understand the financial aspect of it. The internal stakeholders worked with us on the vision statement during our workshop, which we'll talk about. But there are the external stakeholders as well, which are the townspeople and the residents, which are affected by not only these areas that are in their backyards, but especially the financial aspect of it. So we held the workshop with the stakeholders, and we established our level of service goals, which had to be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-bound, so you're putting an actual time to them. They evaluate the assets, and they provide an area to redo. So this is constantly changing as that condition of the assets change. This next step was to identify our assets, their location, and their current condition. Essential information includes their age, their condition, their expected life. So we're asking questions like, what assets do we have? Where are they located? What condition is each asset in? What's the remaining useful life? And what's the value of each asset? From there, we established a framework for asset prioritization. This is a measure of the risk associated with the asset. So how likely is the asset to fail? What's the probability of failure? What are the consequences if the asset does fail? We know that some assets are more critical than others, but when we prioritize them, we're looking at the spending of limited funds, where to employ our limited personnel, how to manage an individual asset or collection of assets over time, and we look at capital improvement planning decisions. From there, we create a well-written management plan. And one of the areas the town was looking to really establish this was a funding strategy, right? So we've talked about this many times, and we really needed to figure out the best manner to allocate funds for the operation, the maintenance, the repair, and replacement of our assets. What funds did we need? When would the funds be needed? And what personnel would be required to operate and maintain the assets? Okay. The funding source. So on Monday, March 27th, 2023, the Selectmen held a public hearing to discuss acceptance of the fiscal, that was 2022, State Clean Water SRF grant in the amount of $30,000 to create the Stormwater Asset Management Program. The budget was targeted to cover the engineering and consulting expertise for an asset management grant that was awarded, and the goal was to establish the asset management program. And CEI was chosen to do that. So, improved asset management is one of the benefits, and ensuring that our important infrastructure is maintained and in good condition, and understanding what consequences that can result from an asset's failure. Consequences can be financial, environmental, and social. An example would be if an asset failed and there's damage to a wildlife nesting site, that might cause some financial loss, but it's also causing environmental damage. So we look at all of those things and the consequences that they have. Regulatory compliance, MS4 permit. So that's the permit that is issued by the EPA to help improve water quality in water bodies. And so the New Hampshire small MS4 general permit is a state level permit, and we complete the report to the federal every October. So that implements the federal program. The state level permit implements a federal program. The permit requires operators to develop a stormwater management program that controls pollutants from all discharge points. And so CEI works with us very closely on the development of our MS4 report each fall. The program must include public education and outreach, public involvement, illicit discharge and detection and elimination, construction site stormwater roll-off control, which is the item that we worked with the planning board on last year, and post-construction stormwater management in new development and redevelopment. Financial sustainability, which is managing assets requires adequate funding, and it can be expensive, as we know. Funds are needed to perform routine maintenance, to pay staff, and to repair and replace the assets. In this component of the asset management program, we estimate costs for properly sustaining the assets over time and develop a strategy for obtaining those funds. and then developing the communication and the increased efficiency. So the communication plan is essential because we have to take the results of the data that was collected, and hats off to Mr. Brown and his crew. It was ranked, it was identified as critical, the community's needs have to be made clear to our decision makers, which are you folks, and also to educate and inform the public so they understand where their funding is going, because quite often this does result in some costly repairs. And so here is the vision statement that was created, working with our stakeholders, to use asset management to support decision-making and facilitate communication between the town staff, the elected official, and members of the public. And Mr. Lamb. So some of the stakeholders that were involved in that were our internal highway department, the town administration, the building department, our building department and code enforcement officer at the time, Mr. Blackwell. We had a member of Conservation Commission there. We had a member of the planning board there. We also had a member of zoning there, so I don't want to forget the chair was there. And then we had external stakeholders, so as normal, we had the stormwater representative from NRPC, and we had members of the general public.
All right, thank you for coming, everybody. Thank you for listening to me for the next 15 minutes.
Can you hold the microphone closer to your face?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're
All right.
recording.
Okay, is this on? Can you hear me? All right.
The last, not that close, just it's enough so they can.
there you
pick
Okay,
up.
all right.
Thank you.
All right, so as Kim mentioned, she just left off on the stakeholders. So our initial effort was to hold a levels of service workshop. So that's getting all of these stakeholders together, determining what the goals and objectives are for stormwater management for the town of Litchfield. Some of the items that we want to take a look at broadly would be how are we going to inventory? When is the inventory going to be complete? What is the inspection frequency? As Kim mentioned, funding, communication, internal and external. All of these things need to be thought out. So getting the stakeholders together all in a single room is beneficial. So this is a snapshot of the levels of service meeting. We broke up into groups, and stakeholders determined what was important to them as far as condition goes, cost, regulatory compliance, communication. Once we found out what's important, we tied a action and a measurable timeline for each. So that's what you see here. It's a completed level of service workshop from October 2023, and we have service areas on the left side. So you have regulatory compliance, cost, and health, safety, and communication with different goals and action items and timelines. Some of the notable ones are completing the stormwater inventory by 2026, which is ambitious but great. Other ones are determining a 6-year inspection frequency, so revisiting features every 6 years to see how they're doing. Having annual inspections for some of the critical features, which we'll get into in a little bit. And then some funding goals as well for submitting the capital improvement plan by 2026 is one of them. So a lot of different goals, timelines, actions for each. And this is available in the user manual as well. A little bit about the process. So first step, as Kim mentioned, we have done catch basin and outfall inspections for the town of Litchfield for a number of years. So we had a fair amount of stormwater data. We had it in a number of different sources. We merged the data together into a database, designed a user interface with a stormwater schema, and developed code and scripts. So basically designed the software for the data. Field data collection. So that is my favorite AI image. So if anybody tells you AI is junk, that is my new favorite picture I'm assigning to all my asset management presentations. Okay. So field data collection started in July 2023. We had a training, and I thought the training was very good. We mostly worked through troubleshooting the software, the forms. We also determined our target area, which was in the center of town, about a quarter of the town. There's also a map in the user manual. We can't see it too well in the presentation, but I believe it's south of Pinecrest Road. Yes. Yeah, south of Pinecrest Road. And so data collection began in September 2023 and ended in May 2024. We had great results, so we were expecting to modify or create 250 new features in that area, and we ended up collecting over 500 features, so we doubled that. Most of it was catch basins, so you can see on the left-hand side it's like total features. We have original and we have final counts, and then over on the right we break that into subgroups because we collected data on catch basins, outfalls, manholes, and pipes. So the large difference was catch basins and pipes, but like I said, collected a lot more features than we thought we were going to, so that was great. Overall, most of the features are in a good standing, so we say a good standing if it has adequate functionality and has no damage or is minimal superficial damage. For instance, that is a fair condition outfall over on the left-hand side. So it has moderate deterioration, but it's still adequate. It just has some rebar exposed on the outlet of that concrete pipe. But most of the outfalls look a lot better than this. And as you can see, we had about 11% or so that are fair bore, but the vast majority in good condition. A little bit more about the software. So the platform that we used is Esri ArcGIS Online. A lot of municipalities use it. It is kind of considered the Microsoft of GIS and asset management. And works with iPhone, works with Android, works in a web browser, very easy to share data. Here's just a couple screenshots of the platform, so you can display your features by type, whether it's a manhole, a catch basin, a pipe, a culvert, and then also do color coding for condition or repair status. All easy to do. And yes, so each feature also has, it keeps a chronological history of your previous inspections, photos, repairs, really anything you want to, any information you want to keep with your assets, it's possible. Okay, so we take a step forward here. So the first step was really working the inventory, getting that off the ground, getting the software working. This next step is developing frameworks. So this is what we call a asset prioritization framework or criticality analysis. So we take a look at each feature, determine the likelihood it's going to fail, and we have weighted factors for that, and then we take a look at consequence of failure, and we also have weighted factors for that. So in our example, we have a pipe that was installed in 1950, which, believe it or not, is 75 years ago. Corrugated metal in fair condition, half filled with sediment. So pretty high likelihood of failure. You know, typically metal pipes fail before HDPE or reinforced concrete, and half filled with sediment is a sign of failure, could be imminent or likely. But it also has a very low consequence of failure because it's only a 12-inch pipe. It's pretty shallow. It's less than 8 feet deep. It's under a road. It's not near a building. It's not near a floodplain. So it would consider that a low priority. Anything in red should be on a short list of being repaired, replaced, or at least monitored very frequently. And then there's also the life cycle cost analysis that we can complete on the inventory. So this takes into account the pipe, related features, connected features like manholes, catch basins, labor costs, and then also an inflation factor on top of that. And it breaks it down into price per linear foot. So it's a very easy, nice rule of thumb way to estimate the cost of replacing a piece of your stormwater. Other frameworks, implementation plans. So this is taking the asset management plan and how is the town going to apply that, and we'll view that in the next slide. And then we also develop frameworks for the financial plan and communication plan, all outlined in the user manual. So the implementation plan, probably the most important. We have goals for completing the asset inventory, performing that criticality analysis so we know what our high-risk features are, and calculating the life cycle cost analysis so we have a general idea as to what this will cost, both short-term and long-term, to replace. And hopefully we'll have that, our goals to end of 2026. And then 2027, it eases up a little bit as we are revisiting features, revisiting high-risk features annually, doing our monitoring, doing our replacements as we go. User manual, almost complete. Should be, I think it's going to be completed next week, and we'll have it on the town website in the stormwater management section. And thank you, and any questions?
No, this is awesome. I knew it was going on, but I didn't know to what detail.
Okay.
When you were talking about new software, I'm thinking that this is off the shelf. It's not something that is homegrown. You're taking
Right. So
ArcGIS
it's
and added.
an off-the-shelf program that a lot of municipalities use, and we code some of the pieces for stormwater that are
Yep.
helpful.
So I assume other municipalities are gonna pick up on it as well and kind of carry it through.
Everyone that we've worked with has used some variation of this.
So now Matt, I assume, is involved as well with working with Kevin. So as he goes out to inspect buildings or roads, what have you, he knows, he can pull this up, he can find out where the discharge is, where the outfall is, and how it can impact.
We haven't brought Matt in yet.
Okay.
Because he's so new, but yes, he would be able to. It's open to any of us, and we work together closely. So.
Yeah. And this is something, I think you all have iPads now that you can.
We have 2 iPads at the shop that we use for inspections. And grading, all that such.
And so then it'll also give us a year-to-year run rate of how much we should be putting aside after we do the assessment to determine someday. I won't present that number. We'll let you.
I'd be more than happy to. I'll give you one now.
Oh, probably not.
So using the data you collected so far, I assume also every year you're gonna update the database to say, okay, we adjust this one, this is the problem, this is how we fixed it, this is the cost, so you'll always have updated numbers. Do you have any that you know now that need immediate attention, that this showed, oh, it's much worse than we anticipated?
Yes.
Yeah,
How many?
care to share?
Well, the Ness and Keg area, like we were talking about, the galvanized pipe.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Ness and Keg and chemo.
Yeah.
I actually have a contractor down there right now. But yes, and mostly on the corrugated galvanized pipe is the biggest issue. I have a couple spots that we had concrete, but it was pre-concreting the connections, and I am seeing some fresh sand being washed out, so there might be some start of leakage. Keeping our eye on that. But as we continue to do inspections with the cleanings,
Yep.
and we inspect it, we'll continue to update what we have year after year, and we can see if something's getting worse. And the degradation degradation of concrete, like that outflow that you saw. So we're working on it. It's a little bit at a time. We have a pretty good section in. CEI got a lot of it for us to begin with, and we just, found more. So as we continue to go through the town, we'll find more and more. I don't think we're done at 500, catch basins. We have more. Depends on what they were made, how they were made. Luckily, Lou Cameron's been around for a long time, and he kind of pushed the concrete. So our pipes are,
I remember that from the Little Service meeting.
yeah, and we ran into that in Robin for years and years. No one wanted to pave Robin because we were afraid of the infrastructure. I had Bellamore come in, and we actually cambered it, and the concrete was perfect. So we were able to pave that road without any construction, without any underground utility work. So stuff like that helps us. Well, what we're getting into here with this helps us asset management. Me going down the road and how I resurface a road or take care of
Yeah.
the area.
So you definitely find it a value add.
Without a doubt, absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I can see it expanding into, I know we're here for, that type of asset management for underground utilities, but, signs and lines and
Right.
crosswalks, it could be anything. Anything you wanna put in there, you can put it.
Yeah, we work with towns on sewer, water, snowplow routes, whatever.
Right.
Whatever they think is handy to have, you can pull it up on a web app in a browser and take a good look. So, look at pictures, even just see how water flows throughout the town. It goes in here and it
That'd be
exits over here.
interesting.
That's helpful when things flood.
We have a lot of tributaries going to the Merrimack, so it'd be interesting to see where they all feed in from.
It's nice knowing where a pipe leads to. You get 100%, you've got a puddle and you're saying, how come it's here and how, it should be flowing that way, but it doesn't flow that way. And seeing it on the tablet makes it way easier to troubleshoot. And when we start doing the catch basin cleaning again this year, I'll send one of my guys out, so when they pop a catch basin, they'll do the inspection at the same time. They'll be able to stick it and see how much sediment, all our MS4 stuff will be covered, along with our asset management work.
All in one shot.
Yeah.
Question?
Yeah, so I stepped off the planning board about a year and a half ago. Stormwater was going on, you changed all the zoning the ordinances, right? But when a new subdivision comes in now, is that all costed now for impact fees, or is that being worked on, or?
That's a good question. I don't think we've looked at the asset management system for that yet, but we certainly could. That's a great use of it to be highlighted. I think one of the things I'd like to see now is us go back to those stakeholders that we had the level of workshop with, and present more of the actual system so that they can give us an idea of how it will help them and what questions they might ask. I mean, hats off to Highway Department. I mean, they did an amazing job, and I know they were out there that first summer crushing this. The other point I have to make, and I don't want to be remiss, is the board knows that when I came in 2022, MS4 was not an area that I had worked on in my previous. So I have to give a big thanks to the Stormwater Coalition and to NHDES and to Deb Loisel for helping me, because it took a while for me to really get a handle on the system. And so that's to CEI and everyone that works with us. We've come a far way in a couple of
And I
years.
gotta say thank you to Kim, because I wouldn't wanna do that half.
Then you,
I'll be honest
know,
with you, I'd rather pop the catch bases and look at them than do the paperwork portion.
Right.
She is
Yeah.
doing fabulously.
you were this close to being non-compliant with the government, we had to get it in.
We were that first year and caused a little bit of heartache, but working with DES and working with CEI and we got it accomplished, and we've had no problems being well before the date since. So been able to take care of everything and then some. So.
I think it's a really good foundation of what you have, the data, the program, like you're close to, you know, using these other frameworks and estimations where it'll direct where you inspect more, and it's gonna direct where you put money and where you don't put money in.
Almost a heat map to say, yeah,
Yes,
these are our areas, we
exactly.
have our critical areas we have to
Well,
focus on.
we do it with the roads now, you know, in our HPC.
PC and RPC.
Sorry, they grade out roads for us, and we kind of go by that over years.
Yeah.
You know, and we jump around a little bit, but it's the same idea. We're grading it ourselves now.
Yeah.
You know, grading our pipes and our catch basins and our outflows, so we can watch it and know, well, we're gonna have to push, hey, guys, we need money, you know, or we gonna need help. But,
And I agree, you should go back to the stakeholders so that they could see what their time and effort has done and bring it back around so they can see it's in use moving forward.
It looks like conservation slipped off between the original internal stakeholders and then the workshop that happened in October 2023. Is that?
I don't know, I don't believe that was intentional.
No, but it would be probably good to add them back in.
Okay, you got it.
They'd probably want to be part of that.
anybody can come and play.
Yes.
Yeah, they probably will though, because anything that has to do with the water in the town and where it's accumulating and all that kind of stuff is
Well, you know,
is
this-
watched by
We do a lot
conservation.
of water, Parker Park, you know, we have a stream going through this, and we can watch that.
Yep,
You know, they're there all the time, we go by every so often,
yeah, oh yeah, they are,
so.
yep. But if you're gonna redo it, just add them back in.
Sure thing.
Any other questions?
I'm just thinking of the poor beaver dam that I'm thinking of.
Well,
But I think he's
friendly-
Londonderry,
our
so I
friendly-
think we're okay.
Londonderry, yeah.
Our friends,
You think that's no
our
friends?
friends.
No, I think,
Hot size, but
if he shows up on the
Yeah.
reports.
You can't even see it today.
He did a good job. Yeah.
Pull the hut.
It's really
Water
nice, though.
interference.
Illegal.
It is probably. Oh, yeah,
This is
that
not what I thought it
Can't
was.
get that.
This is not what I
Yeah,
thought it was. This is awesome.
It is awesome.
Homeowners
Scott, right? Scott Lake.
Done that.
Thank you for coming in, Scott, appreciate it.
Thank you so much, nice talking to you guys.
Appreciate it. Thank you for everything you do.
though. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Thanks.
Back to the meeting. We have one request for an additional item, which is we need a motion to add the 2025 tax warrant to our agenda.
I'll make a motion to add that to our agenda.
Second?
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Right.
1, 2, 3, 4, 0, 0. All right, public input, no earlier than 6:45, considering we're a little after 7:10. Is anybody here for public input? And that is not on the agenda. I believe you three are here for the CIP?
Yeah, is there gonna be public comment, 'cause I see you got the fund policy, I'd like to talk to that. Is there gonna be
Yeah, when we do the-
public comment period?
For the, so we haven't, which one are you talking about? The fund balance policy?
Yeah,
How about, let's get to that point where we talk about it and review it, and then, yeah, we'll have some public input at that point.
that's great, thanks.
All right, moving on. So we have the approval of minutes for April 28th, but we had a couple adjustments. I think it's 21 pages, so we have some adjustments we want to make. So I'd like to make a motion to table that one until the next meeting.
So moved.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Moving on, we have, let's look over my notes.
Interviews.
Interviews, CIP representative, replacing Marion Colby. We have 3 candidates, Mr. Michael Parker, Brian Johnson, and Ron Oblemis. I believe you've already met with the CIP committee. So this would be more of an informal, we'll get to know you and listen to what you have to bring to the table. How about we'll start off with, I'll just pick the first name listed, Mr. Mike Parker. If you don't mind having a seat, sir, say your name and your address.
My name is Mike Parker, and I live at 12 Nesmith Court.
Nesmith, you probably get my mail all the time. I live on Nessenkeg.
Okay. Wife and I moved here in September, and I saw this as an opportunity to get involved in my community. I think I've got some background and experience that would be a good fit. My background, 29 years in the Army as an officer. One of my jobs was as the Chief of Staff at Fort Stewart, Georgia. 20,000 troops, 60,000 civilians and family members, budget of $250 million, responsible for training and for the infrastructure of that installation, both Fort Stewart and Hunter Airfield. I was in that position for 2.5 years. When I retired from the Army, I joined FEMA. And as part of FEMA, I was in FEMA for just shy of 11 years. I was a federal coordinating officer. Federal coordinating officers are appointed by the president to administer disaster funds when president declares a disaster for a community. I was appointed for over 40 disasters in 14 different states and 21 tribes. The thing about my position in FEMA was I needed to make sure that for individual assistance, public assistance, and hazard mitigation, that the program money was spent correctly. And, you know, when communities are going, and I'm talking communities at the county level, pretty much, but when they go through the worst event of their lives, it's a matter of what comes first. What are the priorities, and how do the things link together, be it safety and security or schools or roads or public water, of those kinds of things. And so we'd help them establish those priorities to get things going and to get them back up quickly so they could bring their life back to normal. One other thing I noticed from the April CIP meeting notes was that there was a comment about some grants that we weren't quite ready for because we didn't have a project on the shelf. What I learned from my experience in the Army is that the fiscal year ends on the 30th of September, but it doesn't end until the sun sets at the farthest west. So if the guys in Hawaii got money and they can't spend it, we could spend it in Georgia. So we always had projects on the shelf, ready to go, ready to get that money and use it for the installation. So again, the kind of forward-looking, planning ahead, having it on the shelf and ready to go, because you never know where the money's going to come from. That's a little bit about me. Do you have any questions?
No, well, I'm surprised Bob Jakes hasn't cornered him and pulled all his time away.
Welcome to Litchfield.
I met him on Saturday.
Oh, did you?
And he's already texted me and emailed me and whatever else, but we met on
We
Saturday.
have a hidden treasure, don't tell.
Yeah, we do. Welcome to town.
Yes,
Thank
yeah, welcome to town. Impressive resume. It's that's 29 years in the Army is a good long time, plus 11 years in FEMA.
And you know what? In some respects, it seems like it was yesterday.
Oh,
It really does. It
I'm
just
with you.
goes. Phew.
blink of an
So-
eye, right?
Yep.
Any questions for Mr. Michael Parker?
Thank you for coming in. It's nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming in. Definitely nice to meet you. Appreciate it. All right, let's go with Brian Johnson. Hey, Brian, if you don't mind, same thing. Have a seat. Introduce yourself. Name and address for the record and everybody on TV watching.
Sure. My name is Brian Johnson. I live at One Finch Court. Yeah, you want me to just do like a kind of a spiel? All right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Have at it.
I've lived in town since I was 4 years old. I went to school at Griffin. I went to school at LMS, Campbell, everything. I've used the parks. I've used everything in town basically. Yeah, I don't have quite as impressive as a background in terms of my work, but I think that, having lived here all my life, there's also a lot of people that are I think, like me in town. I live at home with my dad. I think there's a lot of like people in my age bracket that like 20s, 30s that are kind of there. So I think I represent a little bit of that demographic. Yeah, and I don't know that I have, like I said, much like work experience that like would necessarily help the committee, but I do, and I'm always there. I'm on time. I'm ready to learn. I'm a quick learner. Got pretty good work ethic. So yeah.
Big thing is you have an interest.
Yeah.
That's half the battle, getting people with interest.
And there's lots to do in town.
Oh, yeah.
Lots to
I was
do.
gonna say that, if you don't get on CIP, there's conservation, there's recreation, there's Board of Selectmen, there's just so much. For some of us, like I started off where somebody's like, hey, you should go help the recreation. And the next thing I know, I was the chair of the recreation, and then they're like, you should go into the Board of Selectmen. And now, and it's just, yeah, exactly. They suck you in, you can't get out. But it's rewarding because, like the other day, we had the Veterans dedication. It was really nice. In 2 weeks, hopefully, I think it's 2 weeks, we'll have the fishing derby. So you put a lot of time and energy, but then you see these, like, nothing makes me happier than watching little kids run around and get excited.
Yeah.
So it's like all that hard work, and then you see the little ones, taking advantage of it.
And we have the Litchfield Action Group, they do all the different holidays in town.
Yeah.
They did Easter, they do Christmas, they do all kinds of stuff
Yeah.
too, so
So
there's
it's awesome. I
tons
love
of
that.
places.
I love that you're interested.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested in doing, pretty much anything in town, to be honest, but CIP seemed like a good place to start, to
Yep.
be honest with you. And
Yeah,
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
forward-looking to see
Mhm.
how the town should grow and where we're going. Awesome. Well, thank you, Brian. Anybody else have
Thanks so much.
questions for Brian?
All good?
Appreciate you.
Thanks.
Thanks so much.
And Mr. Ron O'Blimis. Ron.
Good evening. Hi, Ron Oblinus, 15 Riverview Circle. I've been here since '89. How many years is that?
I'm not doing the math.
A few.
20, 35 years, 36 years?
Yeah, more than I want to admit to. I actually responded to the application for the CIP for a couple of reasons. First of all, I think it's a entity that is appropriate and needed and has a function in the town. And as has been stated, I have in the last couple of years tried to get more involved in the process around town. Being retired, I have more time than I did before. Similarly, worked 40 years in a number of different aspects, primarily engineering, from managing budgets to engineering to planning to implementation to small projects to billion-dollar projects to a whole bunch of different things. And with that, it gave me a sense of how processes work, sometimes how they don't work. And so it was with that in mind that I felt I could offer something for the CIP. And please don't take this as negative, but I think there needs to be some improvements in the CIP process.
Okay.
And if I can just elaborate on those quickly and explain to you why, and hopefully they'll be helpful. First of all, it's interesting to note that the CIP is really related to the planning board and the planning process. And specifically, out of the capital improvement charter, the sole purpose and effect of the capital improvement program shall be to aid the selectmen and the budget committee in the consideration of the annual budget. And then, in preparing the capital improvement program, it shall review the recommendations of the master plan, which is a planning board function, in relation to the proposed capital improvement program. So the two are, as you know, very strongly linked. In fact, if there's not a CIP, then the Planning Commission defaults to creating the CIP. So recently, we have adopted the CIP process. So one of the things that I have had some interface with the CIP is relation to some of the recent projects. And some of the feedback I got, I don't particularly think is spot on. And particularly, it's in relationship of what the CIP should do when projects are presented to it. And some of the feedback that I've heard is that projects should be accepted at face value and not challenged as to the details within them. And I don't believe that's correct. I admit, or I should say, I would agree that you don't need to get into minutia, but there does need to be some comparing the projects to the master plan, because that's really what you're using as your planning document within town. And so the reason for that is the master plan details practically everything in the town, from recreation to police to school to fire. There's discussion of how that is supposed to take place. And what's interesting is the master plan is put together by the planning board, as you know, and it is in a process of always being updated. And the current section that's being updated is the population and housing. And one of the things to note is that the population in 2040 is predicted to be 9,900. That's from the current 2024 edition of the planning documents. The importance of that is that we'll use that figure then to see where we should be on some of the planning horizons. If you go back to the community facilities section of the master plan, that actually has a date of 2002, and that section hasn't been updated for a long time. But it's interesting to note, it does give projected amounts of police officers per population.
Which one was
Can we
that?
stop you for a second?
This is the Master Plan 2002, Chapter 4, Community Facilities. So this is the current segment of that. It's 2002. Each one of the sections have a different date because they're apparently been updated in different sections. And the reason that's important is that's where it talks about the police station and all the other things. So that's the most recent, we have to use that. So with the population that's shown here, the projection in 2020, our population is actually projected in this document to be 11,785. And we're, obviously, now that's being revised way down. So those projection figures are going
They
way
use
down.
census data for that.
Yeah.
That's what we use, is census data, so they must have projected it.
Yeah, that's what they projected. But the actual right now, the revised is now, this number's getting revised way low.
Yep.
The reason I bring that up is with that amount of population, it gives predictions of how many officers we should have. So for 11,785, we should have uniform officers of 14. That's about where we are now. So the interesting thing, that implies that we are at the maximum amount of officers that we have for the next, till 2040, looking at this. So we're at essentially maximum officer. So then the next document that this applies to then is the impact fees. I mean, you mentioned that the other night when we were talking about projects. They need to be viewed in terms of the impact fees being collected against those types of projects. And this is where the planning board and the CIP should be screening projects against what's in the impact documents, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's look at the impact fees.
Ron, I don't want to, I want to focus this back on the interview process, not diving into the CIP overview. We're going to actually discuss that. But in interest of time, we weren't prepared for this. We were going to do a basic, interview the candidates and.
I'll finish up this real quickly.
Okay.
I'll give you,
All right.
essentially what the impact statement says, that given.
I mean, I should say, I like the data you're finding, and we definitely have to review and
Right.
understand why it's so far off.
And let me I'll give you this piece of information, then I will just close by saying why I think the CIP has been wrong in what it's done,
Okay,
and then close.
appreciate it.
Long story short, this document says in 2040, the police station size should be 6,224 square feet. 6,224 square feet. The proposed police station, do you remember what that was?
I want to say it was 10,000?
It was 10,500.
Yeah.
So that
Does that
project
include Sally Ports and,
includes everything, storage and everything. Yep, every function. When I looked at the plans, police station, I thought they were 40% too big. And this supports that. The point being is when it came to the CIP, this should have been used as a screen to say, is what's being proposed in line with our master planning or not? And I believe it was not, and I believe the CIP should have questioned that in relation to this document. That's why I was offering to be on the CIP.
gotcha,
Now,
gotcha.
and that's why I saw the long-winded answer, because I was told that it's not the CIP's job to question what's coming before it, and I disagree with that very thoroughly, and principally based on the rationale I just explained. So, one last thing. At my interview, there was the issue raised, a conflict of interest, because I'm on the FIC. And both Brian Bork and Kim, you expressed that as a concern. Long story short, I don't think it's a conflict of interest, but because of perceptions and the fact that we have two excellent candidates, I will simply withdraw my application and appreciate the opportunity to at least present before you.
Appreciate that, Ron.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. All right, so as far as the CIP goes, I know they've already met with you, they've already interviewed you. They have 8 members with 1 open citizens rep because Marion Colby is leaving. Their full board will have 5 voting members, and right now they have, I think, 3 that are non-voting. So what we're gonna do is, we're gonna say thank you for attending tonight, thank you for coming in and expressing your interest, we definitely appreciate it. And as we said earlier, there's plenty to do in this town, definitely get involved, the value you bring is just amazing. You can go anywhere with this town and help us all we can, even holding an iPad in Kevin's truck and helping him. So thank you very much for coming tonight, gentlemen. We're gonna, we haven't been, got information from the CIP committee yet on their candidate, so we're still waiting that. And then after that, the town administrator will be in touch to let whoever know that they're the candidate. But I don't understand, how come only 1 citizen's rep?
There's 2.
There's 2?
Yeah. Peter Stone.
Oh, yes, you're right.
We really wanted to meet you, though, because it's important to us to meet the people that want to volunteer in the town, because this town is so largely run on volunteers that we do appreciate you for just even coming forward. And it's really nice to meet you. Thank you.
As you can see, some people are very passionate. Love the passion.
Love the passion.
All right. Thank you very much, folks. All right, moving on, we're going to CIP process discussion. Ms. Kleiner, I believe is this yours?
Yes.
9-page.
So, thank you. So one of the things that, both the department heads and then, I think I've discussed this with, the chair, Mr. Brunel, and I've certainly at the CIP committee, is we think one of the reasons that we have had an issue is that we haven't established a capital reserve. So on the town side, and in your portal, I have the capital process, which is the best practices for the state of New Hampshire. And those state that you really need to have a funding mechanism attached to your capital review. What we do have is a public works trust, right? So if we need to buy the skid steer, great, that's a place. If it's a police car, there's not. If there's a fire truck, there's not. It could be a recreation item, it could be a conservation item. Whatever it is, there's no other capital reserve fund directly linked to the capital plan. And we think that it's time to establish a funding mechanism that is attached to that, and so that the town can put aside any amount of money, whether it's, from unassigned or what have it, it would be by warrant. That fund can only be funded by a warrant article, so the Litchfield residents would vote on that. But it's an item that most towns that have a CIP committee and a capital improvement plan have a capital reserve linked to it. And so that's one of the items that we've been discussing. I did today get the updated capital improvement form from NRPC. That will go out to department heads. We will look at our meeting in July, having first submissions from the town. We will be populating that plan 6 years out. So if there's any items that are needed within the next 6 years, they'll be on the plan. And as I receive them and submit them to the capital improvement plan, I will also submit them to the Board of Selectmen so that you are aware, as we discussed.
So how much do you think, but I agree with you, right now, the CIP is treated as a wish list. I hope we can get this, it's a Christmas list, but you never know. And if there's no funds attached to it, what are we doing with it, where's it going? And then, obviously, Mr. Oblemis has pointed out that the policy and the documents need to be updated because some of them, they're just not matching, so, we need to figure out how much you think we should start with eventually. It's not an answer I expect you to give tonight, but.
So I just want to note, the last impact fee study was done before the needs assessment for the police station was updated. That's why one doesn't link with the other. So the needs assessment was completed after, as you remember, it came in kind of late. It just made it to CIP's process last year. And the impact fees had already been approved by the Board of Selectmen. So that's why, it's tough. You do need to update things constantly.
Yep.
Your impact fees generally are not updated every year. It's generally every 2 to 3.
Kim, I do have a question as far as raising funds that will sit in a capital improvement fund for SIP, for CIP. And that is that we have to do warrant articles to spend that money anyway, correct?
So if you have a capital reserve, you name the agent to expend.
But you
Which
can't
most
do
likely
that
be
with the unassigned fund balance, is that correct?
So the unassigned fund balance can only be used by warrant article. And let me qualify that. By warrant article or by emergency submission to the New Hampshire DRA and their approval. So if the town had an emergency and it could not fund that emergency, the Board of Selectmen could make an emergency request to the New Hampshire Department of Revenue, who could approve the use of unassigned fund.
So you would not move unassigned funds to that capital reserve account at
You
CIP?
could by warrant.
By warrant, yeah.
By warrant only,
By warrant.
okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, for my limited time on this board and under the CIP, I think it definitely has to, I don't know what I wanna say, we need to sink our teeth into it and get a better understanding of what it is, where it is, and shoot for the future to figure out where it's going and use it for the value it is. As Ron pointed out, 2040, I heard the same thing, that we would be, I think the town would max out about 10,000, 11,000 people. But then one of your documents showed that it was higher earlier, and my understanding is if we built every piece of property in this town, we'd only get about 11,000 people in it. So, it'd be nice to know what that number is and how the CIP aligns to where we will be in 10 years, 20 years, or if everything's sold.
So the population, was just updated. Mr. Mancara brought in that information a few months ago. I'm not surprised that it decreased. I think you would see that, pretty much through many of the towns. But I would also look at the problem that we have across the state with housing. So, I mean, it's all linked together,
Associated.
right? And so, I am surprised that the plan would only say that we need a police department with 6,000 square feet, because this police department is inadequate. It's
The
inadequate, it
zoning
doesn't meet
changes,
standard.
zoning changes that we as the town changed, with our town meeting, and then again are at the state to be in discussion levels as well, changed a mixed use, of our land that I don't know was seen, by an estimate of people. We just took in 172 apartment buildings over where BAE was, and 70 where the horse farm is, and
Jay knew that.
and then we're also looking at a new mixed-use place across from Hidden Creek, that we have no idea how many apartments are gonna fix into. So our old way of looking at this town with the zoning that we had, et cetera, was changed by warrant, was changed by BAE in a commercial area being sold.
But they knew those numbers when they did it, because Jay sits on the planning board, he's NRPC as well, and he helped with those population numbers.
Right.
And but the big thing I
What
would
was the
say,
year they were done though?
just recently, like
Oh,
like
okay.
months ago.
Okay.
So I will say, when I was on the planning board, we did about 5 master plan chapters within 5 or 6 years. There's 4 or 5 out there that are old. We're doing economic development now. It's due next month. But, yeah, the facilities one, I agree, that needs help. It's the same buildings still. The one out in Darrow Pond, those kind of thing. But, yeah, but the community design one was 2019 before COVID hit.
Okay.
Those numbers were fairly as recent as we could get.
Yeah, I think we should really look at that community.
I think there's
facility
3,
one.
yeah, that's that one, and the historical one, I think, was the other one that's old. Yep. And they have a public hearing, they all do, but they're old, right? But the ones that we're using, housing population, that should factor in, and the community design one should, because we were looking at housing and all of that. Yeah.
But I think Chief Jones mentioned several times in his presentation that even if the number of officers increased, he would not be asking for more space, and he
Right.
felt that the proposed police station would fit for years and years to come, even if the number of patrolmen
Yeah,
changed.
and I'm not here to pick apart what Ron's saying, but I will say, I don't know what the current laws are for number of policemen you need. They could have changed in 20 years. It could have been 14 back then, but I don't know what the laws are now. So that would but the whole thing would have to be looked at there. Yeah. But he does know the current ones, because he says we're already out of compliance, so he looks at that. But again, I think,
That was
Yeah.
just, I wanted you to have that document of the best practices.
yeah.
Yep.
And certainly, it's on the Selectmen portal if anyone wants to look at it. If you don't know how to get to the portal, I'm glad to show you. But I do think it's something that we should at least consider. I know we've talked about it as department heads, and just out of concern for the town in the future.
All right. Moving along, we're on number 4 of business, which is highway gate purchase installation and ramp installation. We received 3 quotes. An automatic gate closer at the, I believe it would be the highway garage entrance.
Yes.
And gate city fence came in at $16,725, and this will be coming from the impact fees, correct?
So, we have a safety issue down there, I think we all know that.
Yep.
And we talked about the gate, and the board agreed that it's something that we should put in. Police, fire, they're all on board. Recycling, Dave, he's all on board as long as we can, get his vendors in. We got 3 quotes, 2 were very close, and 1 was not so close, it was much lower. So we did reach back out to them and qualify, make sure that everything that they were saying is exactly what everybody else was saying, and they came through, much lower, which for us, good for us. So straightforward, impact fees. Right now, highway department is pretty comfortable, and we can handle it. So I think this is a good time. We're gonna be paving. We've Continental down there, they're starting. So we're gonna, once we get the okay from you, we're gonna contact them. They'll come in at final grade, they'll put down the wires, then they pave over it. And then we have, we can have the rest of the gate installed at any time.
So then, after it's all paved, there'll be no way you can get back there, because right now, the people.
It'll be a sliding gate, an electric gate that shuts.
Yep.
I mean, people can get out of the car and walk through.
Yeah,
But you're not gonna get a vehicle back there.
Right.
And I can't tell you how many times I've been backing up with the loader, loading 16 trucks back there with salt, excuse me. And someone comes pulling and they pull into the salt shed. It's dangerous. Not to mention security wise, we got a lot of equipment down there.
Yep.
Dave's dump is wide open, you know what I mean? People, are dumping illegally. So it makes sense.
And then the trucks will just have a radio transmitter that you.
Every truck will have every truck, every police cruiser, every fire truck will have a button to push. There'll be 2 keypads, one of a truck height and one at a lower height. So Dave will be able to say, waste management, your number is 1234.
Yeah.
They'll be able to come in and hit it and it open. And when they come back out, the weight of the truck will open the gate on the release.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? So, and if people who don't have a button, say the select board wants a number, we can give everybody a number and, be able to, you have every right to come and inspect it.
Ride the plow.
I'll give you a-
Fun, it's really fun.
Don't promise, I'll be calling you.
It's really fun.
So, yeah, so that's where we stand with that. We got three, quotes from, respected, companies, and Gate City came through at the low.
Someone like to make a motion, or do you want me to read it and you can second? All right, so the motion will be for, a quote for $16,725 coming from impact fees for Gate City fencing to install an automatic gate at the highway garage.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
400.
Thank you.
And then I believe, don't we have another one for you?
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
4B.
Kim put this on the portal. I didn't know she had the pictures. So we have a loading dock down there that we use to load salt. If you look at the one, we can see the backhoe. Trucks pull up, and the loader, the center one, the trucks will pull up, coming this way, and the loader would come and load the salt. Well, that's metal bound. The ramp is metal bound, and then we got a concrete wall. Just over years and years, it's taken a beat and it's rusted. I got quotes. I actually got 3 quotes. One was verbal. They just didn't get around to sending me the written quote, and I got 2 written quotes. One of the quotes looks lower, but that does not include the concrete. We would have to supply the concrete ourselves. We have to go, so that's
Okay.
just the work itself. The other one is the contractor who's doing the paving for us.
Right.
And, if you add the concrete into the other price, they're right there the same. I feel more comfortable having them do it at the same time that they're doing the paving. So that's what we're asking. And once again, this is not part of the paving portion. This would also come out of the impact fees.
So they'll take care of that when they're down,
Yeah.
within the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, we have pre-paving. So they'll come in and, they're gonna pin that wall, run forms, replace it. The wall's going back down to the ramps portion. They're gonna repin those and concrete that. And then we'll have a brand new ramp at the same time that we're doing it. I was looking at it and we was having a hard time getting we're getting the contractors, but they were hard time saying when they could get in there to do it. So of course I'm panicking, saying they're gonna come and put down pavement, then you're gonna wanna come in and rip it up and put down,
Yeah.
And I contacted our contractor for the paving, and they said, no problem, we'll give you a quote, and it
Do it
fit.
while we're there.
Right.
So the recommendation, or the motion will be for $13,304.75 for Continental Paving to install the highway ramp for the loading salt at the highway garage. Our purchasing policy also allows us to select a local contractor, and this will come from impact fees.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
400. Thank you, Kevin. Oh, one more.
One more.
Busy night highway,
You know this has to be a no, right?
but I'm okay with this.
2 out of 3 in bed.
No.
I'm kidding, I'm joking.
Highway
It has to
trench
be a no,
permit.
can we just, how about a no next time?
You'd be 2 out of 3. $1 million in baseball.
No, this one here doesn't cost the town anything.
We don't want to look like
Like those.
pushovers. All right, so this is a highway trench permit. It's an amendment. Some modifications to the existing trench permit, which was made, I don't know, how long ago?
Long
A
time.
long time ago, so, the first thing I'm gonna say is there has to be an amendment in the first paragraph. So the first paragraph references the RSA that allows the town to have the permit, and that is incorrect. So if you change nothing else about the permit tonight, you have to change the first sentence, please.
Which is in red.
Yeah.
Right, so, the
The current
current
permit.
one says 255
That-
doesn't exist, yeah. I think it was just a typo at the time. This has, so we did consult with legal. And they have made some suggestions, but they have also indicated that this is well within the selectmen and the town's rights. Number 8 has a minimum, which should be a maximum. So that was also incorrect. And then in the rest of the changes, are really at the end of the document. And this is in speaking with the road agent, so I'll pass it over to why he thinks it's a good idea.
So basically, we don't want anybody opening the roads in the middle of the winter unless it's an emergency. We don't want someone saying, hey, we're gonna trench across your, because compaction, material compaction and such, and the base material doesn't settle the same as it does when in the warmer weather. So we want to restrict from November to April, permits granted only for emergency. Okay? The second part, is we'd like to put a moratorium on when you can go into our roads after they were reconstructed. So if we put $300,000 into our road system, we have a brand-new road, we want, what did we go with? A 5-year, you can't go in there unless it's an emergency. You can't dig, you can't trench without either my okay or the selectmen's okay. So if we have a brand-new road, we don't want people, 2 months later, coming in and digging trenches through these brand-new roads that we spent a lot of money to put up. It's a common thing amongst towns in the state. It's not uncommon. I think the majority have this, and some towns are up to 10 years. We kind of settled down. We started at 3 and we kind of went to 5. Of course, we're going to be lenient for certain circumstances, but there are other ways to go under a road. And we do have one service coming up now that they're gonna, they're gonna directional drill. Yeah, yes, it does cost a bit more money, but it also keeps our infrastructure more solid.
Who is they? I'm sorry, I was reading something. You said
well,
they come in, who is they?
Who's they?
Yeah, you said they come in and they start, they need permission, who is they?
Well, any contractor
I
that
was
wants to
reading it, I
trench,
didn't
yeah.
hear that.
So any
All right.
contractor, so, someone wants to build a house on one of our roads and the road was paved last year.
Yeah.
We have a moratorium on that. If they need to get to water, like we're having right now, they can get to the main if it's underneath, we'll allow them to cut in and get to the main, but from there out to across the road, or if they have to go across 2 lanes of the road, we want them to do it with directional drilling. Just to maintain the structure of our roads, our town people, want to see their money well spent on their roads and maintained. We're trying to keep our infrastructure strong. I don't want to have to repave that road 3-4 years down the road after we've already done it. You can go around town and you can see trench work and you can see where it dips. If it was done in the winter, if it was done in inclement weather, and they don't get the compaction right, they don't get the materials down right, you're gonna have sinkage and issues, breaking up of asphalt and such. So we're looking to put a moratorium of 5 years, after the completion of paving. Unless there's an emergency, of course.
So the second part, number 1 and 2, speak to some damages and costs of damages. So it is the advice of legal counsel that you have an out, in case it is, drilling that has to be done, but that it at least somewhat repays the town for the cost that you've put into the roadway, and is also somewhat of a deterrent. And so these were amounts that were specifically quoted by our legal counsel as in being common in other municipalities.
Is this only for contractors or like Penachuk if they come in?
Anybody.
That's a contract.
Anybody that needs a trench permit, which is everybody that digs
Okay.
within our right of way. Like I said, we're just trying to protect our infrastructure, we're trying to protect our roads.
Now, is this something that if we approve, do we have to have a public hearing on this?
No.
No?
No, so, because it isn't a zoning ordinance, and I have to be truthful, I wasn't familiar with this, so, the municipalities we looked at around us all do have,
Okay.
similar language, but I reached out to legal just for that reason, because I'm thinking fee, and generally a fee results in a public hearing. Because this isn't a zoning ordinance, this is directly from council, you can amend the regulations whenever you want and apply them to any project that you haven't issued a permit for as of yet. The selectmen can amend the regulations, to add any provision, while not allowing any non-emergency trenching, for 5 years. May be tough, you can impose some serious fees to deter the cost.
Like we said, we're not trying to stop people from building and getting water or whatever. We're just trying to make it so that our infrastructure stays solid.
If they break it, they should fix it.
Yeah, what do they do now? If they dig it up, they're supposed
I would
to,
think they'd
If
pay
you look,
for
if
it.
you look through the trench permit, it gives guidelines on how we want them to trench and, the distances and
Yeah.
depths and the materials to be reused. There's definitely direction on how to do it. But I don't care what anybody says. If you mill a road like these roads were milled up here under what Penachuk did for Saint Gobain, you dig a trench across that, and it's not going to be structurally the same as when you do the whole road and you have compactors going down and getting 95% compaction and such. I just it's a way for us to protect ourselves, protect the town. We are running into this right now, and luckily the vendor and the people who are want the water are very understanding, and we're getting them to directional drill. They wanted to cut across both sides of a cul-de-sac that was just paved last October. So, you don't want to stop someone, they're building a house and you want them to move into town, but we also want to protect ourselves.
It seems like a good change. Does anybody else see any problems with it? What problems could there be with this town? I mean,
contractors will complain that it's costing them too much money.
they should stop breaking our stuff.
They can blame me,
That's why
I know.
we can't have good things.
I'll make a motion that we approve the proposed changes in the trenching permit as presented.
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 400.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Kev.
I appreciate your support. And
you so
Bobby,
much.
it's 3-0.
You wanna stay around for a few more?
Don't come back.
I'll make sure it's a while. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, request for town sign. We have an application to use the town sign from the Historic Society. It's Memorial Day Program and Parade on May 26th, 2025. The use of the sign will go from May 15th through May 27th. I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
To Mr. Leary.
Can I? I'm a member. I'm a
Second.
member.
Second.
All right, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
400. All right, policy review, suggested amendments.
Start with fun.
I assume that's you?
Do we wanna start with fund balance?
Sure.
And maybe, I think there was public comment that wanted to.
Yep, whatever you're comfortable with. You okay with that? I'm okay with that.
I'd like to hear his comments about the changes that are proposed.
So we're gonna,
Are we doing the fund or the
are we
fraud?
opening to public comment then?
Yeah, we'll open it back up to public comment.
Excuse me, I read that, so I assume we're talking about unassigned fund balances and such, is that correct?
is.
Okay. I just want to express points that I've made previously during the budgeting season. I think the use of unassigned fund balances for warrant articles should not be utilized. The reason being,
We all said.
a couple of reasons. When I ask people what the unassigned fund balance is, I have asked 100 people. No one clearly knows what it is. I have had no person give me the correct understanding of what unassigned fund balance is. And quite truthfully, when you see $0 on a warrant article, myself, I'll be honest with you, I looked at it, I thought it was either a grant, or it was an impact fee, or it was some special allocation that is not tax-related, making the warrant article to be zero tax impact. So, I don't believe we should use unassigned funds for warrant articles. And so how do we do it then? And people say, it doesn't affect your taxes if we use unassigned. Well, I don't agree with that at all. And let me illustrate. If we want to have an item that has $1, would have $1 impact on the tax rate, and we say that we could fund that with unassigned, then that means that we have that amount of money in unassigned, that we don't need it for any other purpose. We don't need it to cover our expenses at all, do we? That means it's free and can be given back. In fact, that's one of the purposes of unassigned, can be given back as credits. So therefore, if we have that amount of money, we should give that back and then ask for the $100,000. If people want to be taxed for that dollar tax rate, then show it as a dollar tax rate and let them vote it as a tax. I'll use this past budget season. You requested $397,000 of warrant articles using unassigned unassigned fund balance. That means that you had $397,000 that you did not need to have because you were willing to give it away. That should have come back to the taxpayers. And then you should have asked for all those projects and had a tax on them. I'll go back to my point. is people see zero and they think it is some way that does not affect their taxes. And I state unequivocally, it does impact your taxes. Because going back to your policy is you have a requirement that you maintain between 8 and 12% of unassigned, correct? And that's up to your discretion. There's no upper limits or lower limits. My simple suggestion for your unassigned is that you continue to allow unassigned to accumulate till it gets to 12% of your budget, and then every dollar over 12% that you give back to the people in tax credits. You do not allow it to go forward as a warrant article. That would be what I believe the fairest thing and the most logical and the most understandable for people that are trying to go in with limited involvement and limited interaction in trying to understand these warrant articles. What was embarrassing to me was the length of the warrant articles that came forward this year. I mean, it was, how many pages was it? It was 3 or 4 pages. And I'll just close with this little last thought. I really believe use of unassigned fund balance is a way to try to end run the tax cap. You proposed $400,000 of unassigned use of money. That's 10% more. What's your budget? 400,000, 4 million? I think, right? Somewhere in that neighborhood?
7.4.
7 point, I'm sorry. So if that was all approved, that increases your authorized budget by 5%. To me, that is an attempt to end run the tax cap and using unassigned to do it. So thank you.
Thank you for your input, Ron.
Somebody want to reply to that? We can't return unassigned funds.
So, I'd like to stick to the policy. I'm actually suggesting, very limited changes, to the policy. I think this policy is very well written. So under definitions, non-spendable fund balance, I did just add some out that the words that are in red. This is amounts that are not in a spendable form. I think that's the easiest way to think about it. Inventory, prepaids, things, it's not cash. It's not anything that you can liquidate. So I just added that language. Then down under unassigned fund balance, so the legal term for unassigned fund balance is unassigned amounts are available for any legal purpose set by the state legislature and set by the Department of Revenue. And one of those legal purposes is the funding of warrant articles. It goes to the taxpayers, and the taxpayers have a right to vote. So that is a legal use of unassigned fund balance, and it does not matter whether you are a tax cap community. That is a legal use.
However, can we refund those monies to the taxpayers?
You could. So here's what I'm gonna suggest. Think of it this way. The unassigned fund balance has occurred over the history of the town. People who live here now, people that don't live here now. You're going to be returning funds, if you do that, to people that didn't live here when they were collected. That's one thing. The other thing is this is what it creates in your tax rate. So the idea of a tax rate is to keep it as stable as possible, right? You don't want to see large increases. You don't want to see large decreases that are only going to cause a spike the next year coming. And that's what's going to happen. That we've seen it over and over and over again with communities that use unassigned fund balance to pay down, because that's what it's called. It's called paying down the tax rate. So they DRA then takes that amount and pays that towards the tax rate. So people aren't getting like
Check
a
back.
refund or a check or anything like that. It's artificially lowering your tax rate
So when you get your tax bill, it is lower.
than it would have been. Yes, because it's been
You don't get a you
offset
don't get a
by
rebate,
whatever
but you get a
amount.
lower bill
Yeah.
Till the next assessment.
until the
Pennies.
next, until the
That goes
next.
way up.
Pennies.
Pennies?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, so you're
'Cause
talking.
I always understood that we couldn't return it.
I didn't think we had a mechanism to return it.
I
but
didn't
it-
either,
The DRA
You
says we
can
could.
pay down the tax rate.
okay?
So you can take that amount and apply it towards your tax rate, and the DRA will take that calculation. It's not like these, $100, $200, $300 checks are gonna go flying back to the tax. That's not how it works. It doesn't ever equate to that. You gotta remember how much you'd have to pay down the tax rate to really make an impact to everybody's individual taxes.
Okay.
And certainly what I said last year still holds true. If the selectmen had an interest in doing that, we could run some scenarios of what that would pay down the tax rate to be. Okay? But I'll give you a for instance. So the assessed valuation, we estimate that when we are preparing the tax rate every budget cycle, right, which does impact the tax cap. We estimate that. So I knew we look at the building permits and the construction going on in town. And so this year, we went a little higher because of the construction projects we have going. We added 15 million to the valuation of the town. It actually came in 2 million higher than that. Thank you. Thankfully, that $2 million is a penny on the tax rate.
Saves a penny on the tax.
So $2 million equates
It's
to
a
one
penny
penny.
on that.
So how much was it? 400,000 would be.
Pay for the stamp.
So I mean that's what I'm saying. Because you got to remember it's overall, right? So it's over the entire valuation. Now, it wouldn't be a great year. We could certainly do it, and we would contact the DRA and look at it. The only reason I would say it's going to be a little bit more difficult this year is you're in the middle of a valuation. So I like to see things level out, the valuation to take hold, people have their new assessments before you start to, if you're gonna talk about paying down the tax rate. But that's essentially what it is. There are communities that do it, and there are communities that do not do it because of the artificial spikes that it creates. I think that and I think the budget committee agreed, because the budget committee, supported the use of this money for well-needed projects. I mean, you had the police cars, you absolutely needed, you really needed 3. You got 1. The putting money aside into the recreation and into the public works, that's money that is well needed for projects that eventually you're gonna need, and now you don't have to raise the tax rate to do those. So, I mean, I see the difference in opinions. The only thing I would say is when you pay down the tax rate, you've gotta look at how that's going to affect the next year. And if you don't have money to pay it down again,
It's gonna
you're
spike.
gonna have a spike. And I think in people's budgeting, those spikes hurt more than if you paid back and lowered someone's tax bill $20, $40. I think those spikes hurt a lot more in someone's budget.
I think a lot of it is just the name. Unassigned fund
Yeah,
balance.
it's
Like,
not.
oh, it's free money. No, it's not free money. You said some of it comes from investments. It comes from underspends. It comes from estimates. We don't know. Usually our
Interest,
insurance.
Last year, a big portion of it was interest.
Yeah.
We, we just happened to, hats off to the treasurer. She handled our money very well,
Right.
and invested it, and, we had more interest. This year, I'm gonna tell you, that's not what you're gonna see.
No.
Right? So, Karen and I are watching the revenues very closely, cause we're very concerned we're not gonna make the revenue projection this year. So, if you had paid down the tax rate last year, you don't make the revenues this year,
It's gonna be a
and
higher tax bill.
there's a big change in the revaluation, you would have had a large spike.
And we have a 5% cap, so we would be
Right.
hitting that without doing anything.
Yeah, it gets very difficult with the tax cap. But I don't think it's meant to run around the tax cap, and neither do I think that.
I would like to get the information out, to have Ron of Lennox, who researches everything, sit here and say, doesn't understand the unassigned fund balance, upsets me. I'd like to get the information out to the taxpayers of what that figure is, how it's gotten there, what it's made up of, so that when they do see, if we still think that that's the best way to buy these large capital expenses, that we could at least have a great definition for it. Because confusion about something that's out there on the warrant, was that what you were gonna say?
It is on
Is
the
that what you-
No,
town
I just wanted to go
website.
after you, I was just asking.
Oh, okay.
No.
We developed, kind of before, the warrant articles, and then because there was a lot of questions last year, we devised a document, and it is on the town website, so if you go onto the town website, there is a document explaining exactly what an assigned fund balance is, the purposes that it's legally used for, and then we did try to link that to the town Facebook page, to try to get it out. I agree with you, people.
Yeah, it just needs to keep getting out there, because, I was under the impression that we couldn't return it, in a discussion I had had with someone earlier, that money couldn't be returned, and that's why we needed to communicate that to the taxpayer. So it definitely needs to have less confusion, more transparency, and more communication.
And just get worried when people think, oh, $400,000 is going back to the taxpayers. No, it's paying down the tax rate, which might equal a penny on the tax rate. That might be important to some people. I'm not,
Probably not.
negating that, but it's different than people thinking we're handing out checks for $400,000. It's very different.
I'll say, do you mind if I say something? It's not, it is kind of related, but not. In NRPC, it's us and our surrounding 12 towns, the National Regional Planning Commission. We voted no on a lot of our unassigned balance, right? The federal, the state level, local, people were hurting. Over the river there, Merrimack, their town meeting is their budget. And it was all rejected, anything unbalanced, rejected, and I think it was Wilton, it was either Wilton, Milford, or Amherst, same thing. Everybody rejected all the warrant articles that were unassigned balance. Again, it just could be the political, what's going on at the time as well, you don't know. But I think the people in Merrimack are more informed than Litchfield, because that town meeting is their budget meeting. It's a up or down vote that
They
day.
also, it cost them $2 million in their budget.
They went, yeah, you're right, they also did what our town did.
Defaulted.
Default budget.
School and town,
So it went all around New Hampshire, well, I won't say around, but at least 3 of those towns.
The only other item that I suggested is that you add, under a minimum level of unassigned fund balance, you add that there are balances out there. One that is best practice from Government Finance Officers Association. And that is a little bit more important, I think, because it's saying you don't have less than 2 months of operating expenses. And why is that important? We just faced this in December, right? So, our tax bills were a little late getting out because information getting to the DRA was a little late. So we had revenue coming in later, and we could not make the school payment without splitting it up. Now, ideally, we would be okay for our general expenses, but if you start to lower your unassigned fund balance, you get in the position where you, if there is a problem, may not be able to meet your expenses. And you have to remember, the money that comes in, the town has quite large payments that go to the school district, right, to cover their, so the majority of the tax rate being the school district. So they say 2 months, the New Hampshire Department of Revenue leaves it from 5 to 17%. And I think, we fall right in the middle of that.
Shoot for 12%, right?
8, yeah, I think it has, from 8 to 12 has shown us as a good place. I would say you want to be towards the higher of that number, but I do think that that is a comfortable place to be. So those were the only changes, that I thought might be helpful.
Thank you, Kim. And second one, fraud policy.
Fraud policy.
You and I have had a couple talks about this, so I now have a complete, different understanding than what I thought it meant.
Okay. So, the fraud policy, just a reminder, there's, many different types of fraud. There, is fraud that is actually criminal, and there's fraud that is not actually criminal. And they need to be handled, in different ways. So, this one, I've both spoken with, I've looked at other towns, spoken with council, I've spoken, the police chief and I have spoken about it, and there's a lot more changes to this one, and I was a little concerned at how this one was written. So I do have some information that it was suggested that I put together, which may help you. So if you wanna take a pack and pass it around. So the difficulty that comes with this policy is if someone is accused or is suggested that there may be some fraud going on, there's different rules and laws and regulations that apply to public employees than apply to private employees. Unless you have some experience with how to process claims on a public employee, I would strongly suggest that you do not. And so the document that I've passed around is some of those. So public employees have garrity rights. If they're a unionized employee, they have Weingarten rights. And then you get into the process of Laudermill hearings. So unless someone is experienced in this, I would suggest that you need to look to someone who is experienced dealing with legal counsel and dealing with your insurance company. Because ideally, any litigation or processing that may come from a claim would go through your insurance company. So generally, when we have a possible fraud case, we're going to contact our legal department and we're gonna contact Primex. And we're gonna let them know. What can happen if these are not handled correctly, it can totally turn around and you can actually result in charges against the employee not sticking and being reversed, or worse less, the litigation comes back on the town, and that's what you wanna prevent. So a lot of the changes that we made to this policy, which I was a little surprised it was written the way it was. So think about it, the Board of Selectmen is ultimately like a jury, right? The Board of Selectmen's gonna make the ultimate decision in whether or not the charges result in loss of employment, right? So to terminate an employee comes from the governing body. That is not the party that should be investigating the claim. Here's why.
Should not be judge and jury.
Right. Neither, and forgive me for saying this way, neither do you have the expertise in dealing with public employees. So it's a very long, it's a very challenging process. If it is a fraud case that results in criminal activity, it's definitely the chief of police is involved. So generally, what you're gonna see is if it's a fraud case that does not rise to a criminal level, and generally this would be discussed with the police chief, and the police chief would make this determination along with legal and Primex. Then it's generally your head of personnel working with legal and Primex. Sometimes an outside investigative group will be brought in. It depends upon the case, and it's generally legal that makes that decision. They would make the recommendation to you folks, and generally that's the best course of action. Normally, it is the chief of police and the town administrator and legal and Primex working together, bringing updates to the board, and then ultimately the board is making the final decision. Depending on the case, Primex may bring in a lawyer who's going to make a recommendation to you. And because they would handle any financial responsibility of the claim, they generally have quite a bit of influence into that decision. So that's the reason that you see so many changes in this policy. I don't think that it was written in the best light for the town or for the board. I do think that this is more of what you would see typically, especially across any of the municipalities in New Hampshire. So that's why it has so many changes.
You're not looking for a vote on this tonight?
I would say read up and,
Yep.
yeah,
Okay.
and definitely take your time on this one, because there are a lot of changes. Yeah,
Thank you.
I know, yeah. I felt bad.
It's a lot.
It is
Yeah.
a lot, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Kim. Moving along, we have, so we'll address this, take it back up next meeting after we all have the time to read it. And I think, has John got it? John's probably sitting on the boat reading it now.
Probably.
I hope not.
All right, moving along, we have timber and tax levies on lots, map 20, lot 14, map 20, lot 16, map 20, lot 18, map 20, lot 18-2, map 20, lot 18-1, map 22, lot 18-2. They come in at 1, 2, 3, 4 for $386.11. Lot 18-2 is $386.14, and lot 18-3 is $387.67. accept a motion to approve the timber tax levies.
Sure, I'll make a motion to approve the timber tax levies.
We could do it all in one, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
all six of them as listed. Could I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Bob. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
400. Oh, more policies. Policy review, first reading, background check policy and credit card policy.
And so hopefully, from my understanding is that the board is not meeting on Memorial Day. So our next meeting would be June 9th,
Yes.
and we'll bring changes to these policies if there are any. I haven't actually looked. I think the police chief and I have found some corrections for the background. So we'll bring those changes back to you on June 9th.
If there is something that comes up and we have to have an emergency meeting, it would be, what, June 19th? May 19th, but at this point in time, our next meeting will not be until June 9th.
Did we close public? Did we have anybody else here for public?
You have to close it.
Oh, yeah. I'll make a
Are you here
motion
for
to,
public? He is.
You don't need a motion.
Oh,
Oh, I think there is somebody.
yeah.
are you here for public input?
Come on up.
Come on up.
We're still in public input.
Yeah, we never close public input, so.
I just noticed him sitting back there,
Well, it's,
so quietly.
so for the record, we need your name and your address.
Tim Finnegan, 147 Talent Road.
Thank you, Tim.
And I came here with no agenda other than to try to keep more abreast of what's going on in town.
Okay.
And two comments. One would be the gentleman who spoke about the
Unassigned fund
unauthorized,
Unassigned. fund
unassigned
balance.
funds. As I see it, it's not that people misunderstand or don't understand. The thing we should be doing is what he suggested and not saying no tax impact. That's more important than whether what there's coming from. We should be showing that there is a tax impact. Anytime you spend money, it has to come from taxes. So I would agree with that gentleman that we should not concentrate on, teaching people what the unassigned funds are. Let's just tell them the truth during a warrant article.
Can I just comment on that one before we go on? So when we say no tax impact, that's on that budget or that,
Warrant article.
that's for the next year. So the next year, there will not be a tax impact. There was a tax impact because that money came from somewhere, but when you're voting on that, at that point, if it's coming from unassigned fund balances.
No, it's just what we talked about. Then
There's
that money could be used the next year to lower the tax rate. Someone's gotta
Right.
pay that money. That money is not free money.
Right, but the reason why it does not say, the reason why it says there's no tax impact, because the money's already in the coffers. So next year, there is no tax impact because the money's already there. That's, once again, that's another one of those
Yeah.
unassigned
But
funds.
if you don't spend it out of that fund, then that fund will continue to grow to the point where we should buy down the tax rate.
So some things that we can and cannot say on the ballots. We can't go into long definitions as to why. That's why we send out the information before the town ballot, so you can read that and get all the information.
The second thing that I was curious about is the use of impact fees. And impact fees have to be assessed in proportion to the share of municipal capital improvement costs related to the capital needs created by the development and benefits accruing to the development from those improvements. Impact fees may not be charged for upgrading existing facilities or infrastructure unless the need for the upgrade is created by the development. Now, I heard about $30,000, I think, tonight being voted for to spend out of impact fees. And that's for an automatic gate and for paving, and I don't see where that was ever tied or it was used by any growth or developer here. That seems to me that we are not using impact fees correctly, and that is RSA 674:21 sub A.
So the use of, on the gate, there's no gate there now. So if you go to the transfer station, there's no gate that goes
Right,
there.
how did someone building houses, how did that change the need to have a gate there or not?
Because as the town grows, we have to ensure there's safety. And having a gate to prevent people who live in town or move into town to go to Outback by Kevin's heavy equipment
Yeah.
is a need.
A certain amount is apportioned to each of the budgets in town.
Yeah.
So conservation gets some, recreation gets some, and it's all supposed to meet the needs that more people coming into town create. The police department gets some, town hall gets some.
Ms. Kleiner?
It specifically targets in the impact fee study upgrades to the DPW facility. And so the gate is being considered an update to the DPW facility, as is the it's actually an adding of another ramp because the existing ramp had gone to such disrepair. So that's the item that is being addressed. There are upgrades to the DPW facility.
Impact fees may be
Additions.
assessed for capital improvements authorized for water treatment, distribution, wastewater treatment, sanitary sewers, stormwater, drainage and flood control, municipal road systems and right-of-way. Now, these are all things that would be impacted by an increase in So I have no axe to grind on this. I just was surprised when I looked at to see that it's supposed to be tied to things that are because of that specific area, not just,
We've done it for parks, right? We've upgraded
Yeah,
equipment.
so
Yes,
such as
Additions.
pickleball, yeah, so
Additions.
additional services
Can't
for
be
the town.
repairs. It
Cannot be
has to
repairs.
Right,
Yes.
it has to be something new.
Something
For
that
the,
is
as
being
far as the
added.
parks go, so the pickleball courts.
yeah.
That we use some of the funds, as Diane was saying, as the funds, they're allocated to different buckets. And so the recreation decided, all right, we want to build pickleball courts. We're going to use our impact fees that are available to us through the builders, and they created the pickleball court. We cannot, or they cannot, I used to be on the rec, so I have a habit of saying we, they cannot use it to repair the tennis court.
Or Darrah Pond.
Or Darrah's Pond.
That's on
But
the
they
SIP
could do a
plan.
pickleball court, because that's new.
Yeah.
They could put a new playground down there, but we cannot replace a playground at Roaring Memorial Park. It's kind of weird,
It is weird, yeah.
But-
All right.
Yeah, it's wicked interesting, and it.
but the
it
impact
really
fees come
does-
from the builders as they, and it's used to enhance services to the town.
And if we don't use it, then it goes back to the
It goes back to
contractor.
the builders, yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we're always hopeful that we can find a good use for that
It's a really
money.
good question. We were surprised, like with the pavilion for the library, and legal counsel weighed in and said yes, because you're building a new structure at the library that's allowing additional programming to accommodate the
More
change in
people, right.
population.
Yeah.
And so, unfortunately, the change in population, the increase in population has created this safety concern at the highway department. And we are very concerned that someone's going to get hurt with now the increased number of trucks to plow our roads. So you have an increased number of trucks going around that building, and you also have an increased amount of residents trying to either get through to the
The-
transfer station on the other side, or to get salt.
Can't come in and get salt and sand anymore?
During business hours, we're happy to.
Stop jumping over the fence.
I think going forward.
Well, that's where I throw my garbage, is over the.
We were
You know,
looking at
Tim, we already
something at
talked
the
about
transfer
that.
station.
Yeah, we're gonna try to put something outside by the transfer station, or so that people do not. Because as Kevin said, he's back there one day and he goes to the salt shed with the loader, and there's a lady shoveling a bucket of salt and sand. It's like, if he wasn't paying attention,
Yeah.
it could be
That would have been her
disastrous.
last bucket.
Yeah.
And then, if the dump is closed, if you're a new resident, you don't know, you see that gate open, you keep following it, and it goes around to the dump. I probably shouldn't say that on TV, but I just did, so. Yeah, it's a
you.
safety
Great
concern.
questions, though.
Thank you for your
Tim.
time. All right, I'll make a motion.
You don't
I
need
can
a
have a
motion.
motion to close,
You don't need it.
to close it now?
Nope.
Thank you for keeping
Just
on
state the
board.
time.
Where are we?
Yeah.
Town administrator and selectmen reports, we're almost done. Ms. Kleiner.
All right, so I know you're probably getting tired of hearing
Oh,
me talk
hold,
about.
actually, we have a new item on the agenda we
Oh,
should cover
the
first.
warrant.
Yes,
You almost forgot.
yeah. The item is the approval of the 2025 tax warrants. Ready for this one? $12,704,834.
First bill,
First bill.
half
First-
of the. So this, just a reminder for residents, it's really your July tax bill that's issued in May. And so it is estimated at the 2024 tax rate, because the first bill is just an estimate. We get the 2025 tax rate somewhere around November, the beginning of November, and then that will be made up. So your second tax bill makes up the difference, if there was any from your first.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, I know, strange system in New Hampshire, but.
Do we need a motion to accept it? Can we not? and-
Motion
and
to
it'll go
approve
away?
it, no, it will not,
All right.
unfortunately.
Can I have a motion to approve the 2025 tax warrant first bill for $12,704,834?
I just can't do it.
I hate it, but I'll do it. I'll make a motion to approve the 2025 tax warrant for
$704,834.
$12,834.
Thank you, Kim. Nobody wants to second it?
I'll second it.
Okay.
Look at Bob not having to do that one. Good for you, Bob.
All in favor to approve, reluctantly say aye.
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 400. Thank you, folks. All right, now town administrator reports, the fun stuff.
Senate Bill 297, risk pools. So there was a committee hearing on May 7th. There were very strong opinions at that committee hearing that this belonged under the insurance department. The chair of that committee is drafting an amendment. So Tuesday, May 20th, Commerce and Consumer Affairs, which oversees the insurance department, is expected to have an amendment, hopefully moving the risk pools under that department,
That's good news.
which I think is more fitting, just my opinion. The April 2025 trustees of the trust fund report is below for you to review. Of course, Karen and I have looked at it. Christine does an excellent job. The total equalized valuation for the town was received by from the DRA. So this is an estimate of the town's valuation if we were at 100% of market value. So we told you earlier in the year, it came back from the sales ratio study that our assessments are only at 65.4% of market value. So the adjustment that the DRA had to raise our valuation was about $655,000, yeah, to get us to 100%. So that's an indication of what the valuation, the reval is going to have to increase our total assessment to get us close to 100%. Generally, it's very rare to get to 100%. You generally get, somewhere between 97, 99. But that is one of the reasons that the DRA does this exercise. And I think if you listened to the revaluation startup meeting, our assessors and our representative from the New Hampshire DRA spoke about this valuation. So that was received. Another communication that's below in your portal. If anyone would like to look at it, it has the specific numbers. So the other item that came in is the county commissioners' estimated 2026 budget next year. And so that has a significant increase, even after the allocation of ARPA funds. It's slotted to go from 125 to 132. They estimate that'll be an annual average of about $87 a household. So, again, that's 2026, so it would be next year's tax rate. The Fisher Cats game, still have tickets for the Fisher Cats game on July 19th. I think everyone knows Wednesday to Friday of this week I will be at the Municipal Managers and Primex conference. The Hudson Litchfield Rotary, if anyone's looking to get rid of recycling their computer and electronics, that is this Saturday from 8 to 12 at Elvern. And the New Hampshire Department of Safety, I think Chief Nickel and I spoke about this in April, that we were applying for this grant to help with our emergency management to update the plan. I got notification that we were approved, so that grant will handle half of the cost.
What's the number on there? You got 4,500.00.
Oh, sorry, 4,500, yeah.
4,500?
Wishful thinking there, huh? Yeah, it's 4,500.
I assume Doug has that in his, the difference in
We
his
do
budget?
have the other 45, the cost is $9,000 to update the plan, and,
Okay.
so we can offset, this amount with whatever we need. Most likely it'll be the contractor that helps us to write the plan. We're using the same contractor we used on the last plan. And then, we got notification, from the contractor that's working for Pennachuck that there will be a Merrimack River water main crossing at 12 Charles Bancroft Highway. This is a water main that will bring water from Pennachuck to the town of Hudson. And this is the land that we were looking at that was acquired by the state of New Hampshire during the circumventional highway project. So I have forwarded this information to Mr. Sansucci, our assessor. And
There's 12 Charles Bancroft, that's almost in Hudson, right?
it's a state parcel. So right now that's state land, so it's not being taxed.
Nothing's on it either, right?
Nothing's on it.
That's that circumferential highway area,
Yeah.
It was taken for the circumventual highway, yes,
a whole lot,
a whole lot. And,
big as the pipe.
so
Yes.
we'll be watching it because the law
average pipe.
is that if it's municipal, it's exempt from taxes. The moment that it is used by a private entity who is, not exempt, there should be taxes assessed, so we'll be watching it closely. But
Offset
there's
it
a
for
lot
some water?
more to come about that project. My understanding is this is a project that Pennachuck is working on, with New Hampshire DES. And so we'll be watching that. I did also reach out and, the president of Pennachuck and I are going to get together and, catch up on that project and some other projects, within town. So, but I did include the information below on your portal. Tish and Bond is the company that has at least given us initial notification of drilling, some drilling that tests that need to be done. That's all I have.
Thank you, Kim. We'll go to Mr. Leary.
Nothing to report from rec. We meet tomorrow night.
Mrs. Queenan.
Hey, let's see. Economic Development Committee, next week we start writing that report, right? You're away, she's away for 3 days, so we will get that report out for our next meeting. We'll have the group probably read the draft to make sure we didn't miss anything. Get that out. Capital improvement, we did meet. We did not have a quorum. It was something we need to look at, I think, in our bylaws, because we didn't have a chair or vice chair this year. So, but then the chair did show up late. But anyway, what would happen if there was no chair and vice chair? Who would run the meeting?
Right.
It's only me as a voting member, right? And the 2 citizens. So who would run it? So we should look at that, but we usually don't have that problem, but that was it. So we had the Friday night meeting to discuss the candidates. NRPC, we did have our 40th annual forum. We did have the federal U.S. representative, Maggie Goodlander, come in. That was nice. It was about housing, so we had all the state reps and senators there, and everyone was well informed. So the biggest thing that came out of that was people think, should the state try to fix our zoning laws, or should the local towns do that? So there's a lot of laws up there right now being discussed. But it was a very good event. Let's see, the PFAS committee that I was on, they said they are done with the St. Cobain water pipes, and they would be finished with Hillcrest Road late spring. I don't know, Kim, are they 100% done? Look, the roads look paved where the water pipes were. Do you know? The Hillcrest?
We were told they were done.
Yeah, that's what I was told. Merrimack is doing some cancer studies over there. Results won't be ready for like another 6 months to a year, but at least they're trying to look at if there's anything there. And that's all I have.
That building's gone now.
They
St.
did take
Cobain's.
the building down. The only thing remaining is the concrete floor. They're not really sure how they're gonna remove it yet because of the contamination. I'm not done. If it's gonna go to the Midwest to somewhere, or what they're gonna do.
Interesting.
There's also a lot across the street. There's a big pile of sand. You're supposed to keep the sand on the lot. You're not supposed to move the soil around, so they might have to figure out what they're gonna do with that excess pile. There's development going on over there, but what do they do with the sand? You don't wanna distribute it around.
Thank you, Kim.
Yeah.
Ms. Plansky.
So I missed Conservation's meeting. I did catch up with all the conservation folks though. The fishing derby is Saturday and I should be able to arrive there, the 17th, and I'd be able to go to that. Their intern starts this week that works between Conservation and the Heritage Committee. And George will be asking him to sign some papers for the milfoil treatment at Dara Pond, which would be wonderful if Dara Pond could get fixed up again. So that's about all that's going on there. My Heritage Commission meets on Thursday, and I just want to take a second to say that we all joined Bobby at the Veterans on Saturday, and that was just a beautiful presentation. It was nice to see we all made it.
It was nice that Governor Hayek came down
It
and
was really nice, yeah.
Sullivan.
Yep. Quality stuff they do, our veterans.
Yes, yes, they do. Yes, they do, sir, just like you. You're next. Okay, for me, planning board, we had continued discussion on the pedestrian crosswalk and the continuation of the sidewalk on CBH. We're spending a lot of time on our workshops, reviewing and discussing town ordinances and how they could apply to the MUVD. Mr. Charbonneau joined us and he presented a rough idea of what he was thinking for the end of Charles Bancroft in Albuquerque. And this was great because it allowed us to kind of get an idea what could happen there and how do we want to, control it and make sure it fits the culture of the town. But it's definitely good conversation. Thursday, I will be attending the Family Promise Gifts and Major Gifts event in Salem. Is that it? We do have a non-public, but I don't think we need it. You agree?
Agree.
I don't agree.
You don't agree? You want to go to a non-public?
Bye.
Okay.
All right, so, we'll be going into a non-public session for RSA 91A 3-2C, matters which discussed in public could likely affect, matters which, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of this board, unless such person requests an open meeting. This exemption shall, my calendar just popped up in the middle of it. This exemption shall extend to include any application for assistance or tax abatement or waiver of a fee, fine, or levy, if based on the ability to pay or poverty of the applicant. So we are going to go into a non-public. After our non-public, we will just come out of the non-public and end our meeting. Can I have a motion to go into non-public?
So made.
May I have a second?
Second. Oh, I think Diane got
Yep,
it.
that's right, we got it.
All those in favor say
Thanks, guys, for coming in.
Thank
Aye.
you.
going into non-public at 8:58 PM.